Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Modern Brewer podcast with me, your host, Chris Lewington. One of the joys of running this podcast is I get to reflect on my career, what went well, where I should have done better, and where a podcast episode would have seriously saved my ass. And this is exactly what brings us to this episode on commissioning. One of the major projects of my career was being accountable for the commissioning of the UK's most advanced craft brewery, a greenfield £40 million site capable of producing 250,000 hectolitres a year. I want to be clear here, I was far from did this alone. I had an outstanding group of brewers and people working together, and everyone played a totally equal part in getting that over the line. It was a really fun, intense project to be a part of. I'd actually never done any commissioning in a brewery before in my life. And the weeks prior to our team being ready to take the accountability, I found a surprising lack of resources online to help me understand what was at stake, what to expect, and ultimately how to deliver it successfully. So I'm bringing this episode to life, one I wish existed several years ago. I can only hope this is coming to help you prepare for what is without a doubt the most stressful yet rewarding aspects of brewery management, commissioning. You have to remember that far beyond ensuring everything is quote unquote working properly, you are accountable for the future of your brewery's production, its control, its limitations and successes. Do not take it lightly and make sure you commit as much time as you can to it and then add 50% more. I hope this episode helps you now or in the future. And as always, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the show notes, as it always is. Now, I must ask you all, the listeners, to do me a huge favor. Most of you might know, some of you might not, but this podcast is far from my main job. And I don't always have the time to invest into pushing the reach of this pod as well as it deserves. So I need a favor. Can you please share the pod with at least one of your brewing friends? Even if it's an acquaintance, just share it. If you've got a WhatsApp group or a forum, that's equally great as well. I mean, even if you hate the content, I'm just looking for the numbers here. Just kidding, but please, it would actually mean a lot to me and it would really help the momentum of this pod move forward. So yeah, if you could take a moment to share, that would be really great. Now, one of my roles that does take up a lot of my time is I am co-founder of Brewing Trade. For those who haven't seen it, what we've been up to is we've revolutionized the hop market by allowing, for the first time ever in the UK and Europe, brewers to buy and sell hops directly from each other. Sellers are turning their hops into cash, and at the same time, buyers on Brewing Trade are saving 25% on the hop cost compared to the spot market, meaning you have more cash left at the end of the month to put towards that lab equipment you've been dreaming of. All hops for sale are verified by us to ensure they are cold stored at the correct temperature. And even if you did find an issue, there's a 100% money back guarantee. Minimum order quantity is just 5 kilos, and generally the hops are dispatched within 48 hours. So please check out brewingtrade.com, and as always, a link will be in the show notes. So let's crack on with this episode on commissioning. With me today is Edina Bálint. Who is currently the commissioning brewer for UK-based equipment and brewery manufacturers, SSV. Edina is straight up class, super knowledgeable, and a super infectious personality. So, welcome to the show, Edina.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, so, Edina, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners for those who don't already know who you are?
So, I'm Edina. I've been in the brewing industry for about 12 years. I studied brewing and distilling in Budapest, Hungary. There is a food engineering university with brewing and distilling department there, if there's someone who didn't know. Over there, I had my apprenticeship in the biggest brewery in Hungary called Brewer. which is used to be a part of Submiller, now Asahi. And I started my journey there as a microbiologist. And I stuck with brewing since then. I just decided to have a little adventure, and I accepted a job in Scotland, so at Brewdog. So I spent a few years there as well, where I picked up a lot of technical knowledge, and I joined to the brewing team over there. I sort of wanted to switch from quality to brewing just to have a bit of more hands-on and to be able to call myself a brewer rather than a brewing scientist. And since then I just moved to Magic Rock and Vocation, and now here I am at SSV as a commissioning brewer.
Yeah, that's so cool. And Edina, why don't you just tell the listeners, because you have such a cool job, where you're sat right now?
So I am at Ballant Brewery's tap room at the minute, because we just commissioned their new or second-hand brew kit, and successfully brewed 3 brews this week. So yes, here I am.
And it's going to be a bit of a celebration tonight, I imagine, right? That's how commissioning goes.
Exactly.
It's a very rock
we had a
star
few
part of the
pints.
industry. Just turn up, bash out the first few brews, have a bunch of beers, and like jet off like a legend.
Yes, exactly. We had a few pints yesterday and the day before as well on the first brews, but today there's going to be a little bit of a party.
Oh, sounds great. Well, first, let's get this boring podcast out of the way, Edina. Maybe you could just tell the listeners a little bit about what a commissioning brewer does, and maybe a little bit about SSV themselves. I think everyone's probably familiar, but there's some listeners maybe not in the UK or Europe who might not know who SSV are. So just give us a bit of background on everything.
Yeah, so SSV stands for Stainless Steel Vessels, and we are based in Leeds, and we really started out with tanks about 10 years ago, selling tanks, stainless steel tanks for brewers, mainly brewers, but not just brewers. Sometimes we work with distilleries or cideries as well. And then after tanks, we started to sell and design, manufacture brew houses as well. And recently we moved to do turnkey projects and CIP kits, yeast plants. We also do all the softwares that's behind it. Most of our kits are automated to a certain level, or there is a low different level of automation. And we also do like modifying brew houses to be automated, so manual brew houses. That's not necessarily our brand. We are just turning it to be a little bit more efficient. Yes, and that's what SSV is doing. I think our main market is in the UK, but we have a very cool project in France at the minute, and an upcoming project in Helsinki as well. So we have a few plans for the European markets as well.
Awesome. So what does your job entail?
So my job is quite versatile, to be honest. I'm involved in most of the projects. I am the only commissioning brewer at the minute, and I'm involved in supporting the sales team to make sure we give the best technical advice and the most suitable equipment for the customers. I'm also involved in the design phase. So once we won a project on the design phase, I'm just consulting with the process engineers to make sure that the kit is built practically. So sort of giving the brewer's lens, the brewer's view into it, just to make sure it's going to be just smooth to work on the kit. And obviously the installation and commissioning of all project and a little bit of the aftercare after that, and training during the commissioning as well. I do help with recipe development sometimes, or when we are upscaling. So very, very different depending on what's needed. We do some consultancy as well, so people, those are not at the stage yet to buy the equipment, but they just need a little bit of guidance on how to be more efficient, or what shall they do to get into that phase, to be able to buy new tanks or a new kit or so.
That's great. It's such a cool job. Very involved in lots of different projects. I mean, imagine it's like one of those jobs where everything is really interesting all the time, because you've got new challenges every week, every 2 weeks, every month, new angles. I know you said you work with cider as well, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's going to be cool. Never worked in a cidery myself, so it would be a really fascinating thing to be a part of, I imagine.
Yes, yeah. Yes, there's a lot of different projects as well, so it's always learning, and it's quite cool to brew and work with these cool brands like Verdun, Daya, Timothy Taylor, Robinsons, Ballant Truck as well now, and also bigger companies as well, like Heineken and Brewdog as well. We did the Brewdog, the small Brewdog kit in Brewdog Waterloo, for example.
Nice.
So it's quite good to work with this big range, like from smaller breweries to large breweries, and it's kind of interesting to see the different requirements as well, and the different KPIs, if there's KPIs, so kind of adjusting to small craft breweries as well, but bigger kits as well, bigger breweries as well.
That's awesome, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your take on the sort of time frame and the steps of a turnkey project. But for my own sanity, I actually was telling you this earlier, but I helped the commissioning of a large brewery, and I had no idea what the term turnkey meant until about halfway through the project, and I was too afraid to ask anyone. So if you could just start off by explaining what a turnkey project is, and then you can just start talking us through the steps, that'd be amazing.
Yes, so turnkey is technically providing a complete service. So you approach to us, I just want a brewery, and then we just give the key and it's ready to go. It's just like buying a car, and then you are good to get the key and good to go and drive away with it.
It makes a lot of sense when you put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, that's what turnkey means, and I guess that's where it come from. I don't know. So basically it not just involves brew house or tanks, but it also involves chillers, steam boilers, also compressors as well. So everything that you need to be able to start the brew. We have all the electricians, welders with it. We sort out everything. Usually breweries breweries, they don't have a place like that to brew. They approach us to do, because it's quite stressful to put everything all together, all the timings. There's a lot of going on, and very difficult to navigate the project. So obviously we had a lot of project engineers to manage a turnkey project. And sometimes smaller breweries, those are upscaling. They usually have certain equipment that they want to take with them. And they probably have some suppliers or like trusted people to do the water treatment, for example, like local people that they want to go with it. So they don't go a full turnkey, but they just using us for brew house, tanks, and we might get involved in steam generators as well. So on the project, depending on the size, but we usually, after the drawings got signed, we are able to deliver the tanks in 22 weeks. The design phase, though, before we actually sign the drawings, it could take a few weeks or months, depending on the size of the project. If it's a smaller brewery, it could get done in a few weeks. It's a bigger one, it could take 2-3 months as well, just to go through all the P&ID, piping and instrumentation diagram, if someone doesn't know about it, because we just
Another one. Yep, definitely have to Google that.
yeah. And we are going to all the P&ID, all the layout, as well, just to make sure everything fits. So after that, the manufacturing usually takes about 16 weeks, and the delivery about 4, 6, 8 weeks. Recently, it's been taking a little bit longer just because of the Suez Canal and the situation in Gaza. So now the containers need to come not crossing, like going around Africa. So that adds quite a few, like 2 weeks at least to it. And after that, the installation and commissioning is about 2 weeks installation, 2 weeks, again, depends on the size, 2 weeks commissioning. I'm talking about, let's say maybe 20, 30 hectoliter brew kits. We are able to install and commission in a month or so.
I've got a question for you, Edina. We're going back to manufacturing. So, I mean, of course, you have the designs and stuff. Do you have one place that you get it manufactured? Do you manufacture it in the UK or elsewhere?
So we have a manufacturer in China called Brewery. They are located in southern western China, in Ningbo, close to Shanghai. And we are getting all of brew house equipment manufactured there. Recently, actually, we just did a factory acceptance test over there, so it was quite exciting to go out to China and see how tanks and brew houses getting born. And it was an interesting experience as well to see the culture and the factory. It's a big factory. They have about 1,200 workers there, a lot of welders. They've been working together with other bigger companies like Heineken, Asahi, and other European manufacturers, brewing and distilling manufacturers as well. It was an interesting experience as well. They were like super organized. What else? Yeah, you're probably gonna cut this one out.
Did you find that because there were quite a lot in the same area, right? There's a lot of factories all in the same area and producing tanks. What sort of landed SSV on La Jolla?
I think we did have a connection with them prior SSV got established, and then they just have a discussion to make a little bit stronger relationship. So I think now we are also dealing with European markets. So for example, now we have a few customers those got La Jolla kit or CIP kit or so, and they just contacting us to have spare parts for that.
Because
that's all.
Yeah, that's great. Because there's a small stigma. I think that's fair to say. It's probably quite a large stigma attached to Chinese manufactured equipment. From my experience, it's a bit lazy to be like the entire of Chinese equipment is of a certain quality. It's more, as you mentioned, the factory. It's very factory to factory, and you guys have obviously found one that you trust. I feel like that's probably the message that people should really receive is if you want to get cheap tanks made from a factory that you're not sure of or you haven't been and visited, then in my opinion you kind of putting your neck on the line there, and I would say that you wouldn't be surprised if you got it chopped, because going to a trusted factory where you can go and inspect it and make that commitment, I think is really important. And if you can't do that, then you need to go through a company who does, such as SSV. And there's plenty of others as well, but I'm not promoting that. But what I'm saying is, if you can't go out and literally see the factory yourself, then you need to go out. You need to find someone who has. It's an important part of buying from Asia.
Yes, I mean, Leroy does have a good reputation. They've been in the brewing industry for quite a long time, for bigger breweries. So I think now they're doing more smaller breweries as well, especially with SSV. And during the years, like at the first stage, obviously not everything was perfect, but because we have a long-term relationship now, and we keep giving feedback to them, our kits and the manufacturing is getting, the quality of the manufacturing is getting better and better, because we have this relationship. Obviously, they working with other companies as well, and so with us, and we taking customers as well. We do have quite strict requirements as well, and they do have certifications. So obviously, if they're working with European or American companies, they do need to comply to certain regulations regardless. If it's not legal, like it's not necessarily, like I know the health and safety regulation might have some lakes in China, but if you want to work with European and international companies generally, you need to have certain standards. So when we went out there and visited, everyone was wearing PPEs. Everyone tried to do was working safely. They have a health and safety officer as well, who's going around and looking if everyone wears and uses the PPEs and equipment accordingly. And if they not, they do have like some sort of ticketing system. So they got a ticket, and they actually got a fine. They need to pay if they were not wearing their provided PPEs. And 5S and sort of lean, if we because it's a massive factory, they have very organized processes in order to be able to comply and to able to produce or manufacture the tanks and different equipment.
Yeah, really interesting. So let's take it back to, you obviously talked about design, manufacturing, shipping, installation. Now, of course, I guess your expertise is in commissioning. So maybe it'll be great for the listeners to understand, like, what are the steps of commissioning? What happens first? How does it all look?
So by the time I'm coming there, usually the brew kit got installed, which means everything is positioned, everything is welded together and wired together, or usually there's a little bit of work that we do together over there, but technically all of our kits coming on skid. So that's why we can do the installation very quickly, because it's just plugging little skids together, quite big, plugging bits together, skids together, like a little bit of Lego. So that's why the installation takes quite short time. And we try to design everything on skids because it's easier to ship as well in the containers. And by the time I'm in, usually my first step is to do a dry testing, which means just going through the P&ID as well, double checking if everything, triple checking if everything is good, and then we do an IO check, an input-output check, which means all the instruments, all the sensors, liquid sensors, safety guards, pressure sensors, transducers, flow meters is getting tested on the system. As I said, most of our kits to a certain level optimized. It's very important to make sure that the input that I'm getting is the right input. I'm getting the input, and then the output that I'm giving is also going to the right equipment. So I can a little bit explain more like input is like your senses, like your eyes and a feeling, a touch, a taste. That's an input. And then an output, that what you're going to do, like an output is your arms, your legs. So let's say you're getting burnt. Your output is then you're going to move your arm away from there. So that's how I kind of can explain just the basic of automations. So I'm getting a level sensor, for example, and then I'm starting a pump that, oh, yes, I'm flooded. I'm okay to go and to pump somewhere else. Or this valve opened, then or I reach this pressure, then I can go to the next process steps. So that's why the input-output check is very important. I'm doing this usually when the electricians are still inside. It's very, very important to have a good Sparky inside, because usually there's some sort of wiring issues. In this step, we are also checking during input-output check the pump rotations. Sometimes the pump rotations is not going to the right way, so we need to turn around, which the guys just need to do some sort of wiring over there. I have no idea about that. So that's what we're starting with. And we do some calibrations as well, temperature calibrations, pressure calibrations. The second step of the commissioning is wet testing, which means we are bringing water inside on the system. So we tested everything, all the valves working, all the pumps working, all my sensors working. I'm just bringing water in. Water is a safe fluid. It's not hot. It's at this point, there's no chemicals involved in this. So it's the best to test with water if you have any leak test. So I'm pulling the water in and I'm just going around if I have any leak. There could be some welding that may be not finished properly, or it wasn't visible. So sometimes like there's like a little pinch that's been leaking, or some of the ports needs tightening or so. We also, in this step, we also, with water, we also checking the pre-built programs called routines. So we are doing like some sort of like water brew. We are imitating a brew with water. Because we write our own software for our HMI. We have like a PLC, like we're programming all these sensors together. We are testing all the routines if they work, and fixing that, making like a little task list, snag list, what is working, what's not working. So after we done the water test, and there's no leakage as well, we do cleaning, which has to cleaning and passivation. So basically we do a degreasing. Usually during manufactures they're using different sort of oils and greases for like cutting, bending, welding, and just assembling the kit. So there's a lot of oil and grease residue in the kit, which needs to be moved. We usually just do it with just general caustic, just a bit stronger. There's a quite good test that you can do after that. It's like a comfort test. I don't know if you have you done that before?
Not sure.
So you can get like comfort. Comfort
sorry,
granules.
I thought you said comfort. I was like, what's a comfort test? And I was thinking, what an unusual name. Sorry, yeah, a comfort test. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was one of those really cool little scientific experiments you felt like you probably did at school but completely forgot about until you needed it in the real world. You're like, This is really cool. Yeah, I love it.
there's a use for it. We did like, you can put like I think like little fish and stuff like that in the school on the camphor, and then you can see how it wriggles around.
So yeah, do you want to explain the comfort test to people?
So
Sorry, I
it's
interrupted you
basically
with thinking it was called the comfort test, which now I feel
comfort.
like I'm a bit of an idiot.
Comfort test. I love a good comfort test. So comfort test. So basically, you just get some camphor granules. Do I pronounce it right?
Yeah. It's just me. I wasn't. Don't worry.
So you can get like camphor granules. You take a sample of the rinse water after you degrease the tank, and you drop a little bit of camphor granules. Just make sure you do it with just a spatula or so, and you're just not in with your fingers because it's quite greasy. So you put some camphor granules in the water, and if they spin in the water, that means there's no oil or there's no grease, so it's good to go. If they are stand still, then that means oil presence in the tank. So you just need to do a re-cleaning over there.
Yeah, it's fun because they do really spin. It's quite entertaining.
Yes, they do. There's cool videos on YouTube as well to check, and then you can try it out. It has a very strong smell though, so don't be astonished by that. And after we degreased, we do passivation, which basically, again, from cutting, there could be some free iron present, which could cause rust. And so with passivation, we usually use nitric acid or NiPAC, but you can ask your chemical supplier about it. What's the best recommended concentration and chemicals that they do? And basically, we just do a good acid clean on all the arms and ports of the kit, which sort of creates a protective oxide layer, which protects you from rust and keeps your tanks nice and healthy. You can redo it as well if you notice anything in your tank, or there's like different chemicals as well.
Edina, I've got a question for you with cleaning. Have you ever come across inside the tanks? It was actually fermenters from my experience, but like a black welding dust. Have you ever seen that before?
No, I have not.
Not many people have had the misfortune of having that in their in their tanks, but it's so. And the project I worked on, we got I think it was 36 tanks, and I'd say 30 of them had a layer of black dust on the inside of the tank going all the way almost up to the top. Some patches was really noticeable. When you shone a light on it, you could see it, and you could rub it off with your finger, and it made your thumb would then go black. But when you put water in it, it didn't come off. And when you put CIP liquid through it, it didn't come off. There was nothing that would take this off other than like actually scrubbing it with like a cloth. But these tanks, some of them were 600 hectoliters, so pretty tall. And we were in a bit of a pickle, to put it very nicely, because we really need to brew in these tanks, and no one really knew what this was. There was someone who'd been on the project whose career had been in project management for new breweries who had never seen this before. So I'm saying it's actually fairly rare, I guess. And I contacted chemical suppliers, different people. No one had seen or used it before. Had seen this like black dust on the inside of the tank, and I eventually managed to get hold of someone who had seen a study from Weihenstephan University on this exact problem, and I managed to get hold of it, and I read it, and effectively the only way of getting rid of this black dust is with beer.
Oh.
However, it dissolves into beer, and it will be separated out with a separator with zero side effects, and that's what this case study from Weihenstephan was. So it was like this meaty document full of information about all the tests they'd done. Someone had paid them to do it. So one big brewery, I think it was one of the big conglomerates, had this problem. No one knew what to do, so they paid Weihenstephan to investigate the effects of this dust on beer, and it basically came out there was no head retention was good, there was no taste taints or flavors. So we basically had to trust this study, and we brewed into it. It was absolutely, yeah. And considering that the brewery was the biggest project this brewery had seen, so it was pretty daunting. But yeah, so if anyone comes across this black dust and you're listening to this, I hope this is the light of the shining that I got when we found it, this study. But yeah, you can effectively just put beer in it, and it's okay. You just have to trust the process.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah, it was one of those moments, it's just really tough because there's a lot of pressure to get things done. No one knows, no one's seen it, no one knows how to act, and of course the goal of nothing is to put anything down the drain, so it was a bit... Yeah, and you go down some real rabbit holes when pressure's on, don't you? So yeah, I hope anyone listening to this who needs it gets the solution.
I have not come across with that. Usually, to be honest, our kits getting passivated and cleaned prior it. So we just, when we are revelding the skid, obviously there's, so that's why we do. But I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, not many people have.
We don't usually manufacture those big tanks as well either. So I keep an eye on it. Thanks for this.
Yeah, yeah. I hope it helps someone. Oh, cool. So let's say you've now cleaned everything. You're happy with everything. I find this a really interesting part. How do you get the first brew through? What quality specs do you go for? How strict are they? How often does that first commissioning batch make it into pack? Bunch of questions.
We have, not to my best knowledge, there's never beer never gone down in a drain during commissioning, so every commission got into tank. Obviously, it might be different with bigger breweries as well. Those have certain specification that you need to go with, but touch wood. We never needed to dump. Usually on the first brew, obviously I make sure everything is rinsed and clean, and so usually on the first brew I like to do it myself. So I can also get my head around it. Just to make sure make sure the program is running right as well. And then because in the first brew there's a lot of things that you need to stop. You might need to keep your mesh a little bit longer, or I don't know, you're meshing it in half an hour or whatever, or you have you need to adjust the motors and the conveyors together, the speeds together. And after the first brew gone, and we fixed the major issues, programming issues. The good thing with us as well, obviously, I can do everything manually. So even though we have a software, if the software part doesn't work on certain programs, we can just do that part manually. I can still turn on my pump manually. I can still open my valve manually. So there's there's quite a lot of flexibility over there. And usually after the first brew, they fix the major issues or that was stopping the brew program to run through. And on the second brew, usually I'm already training the brewers for the kit.
Amazing.
If there's a brewer. Sometimes there's no brewer at that time.
No way.
No, it's like, sometimes there are like head brewers or like different people from management. It's very good to people, for example, just now at Ballant, it's very good to train brewers that was actually going to work on the kit. Because we might train head brewers or some senior management people, but as I said, we do usually we commission quite quickly, and we have 3 commissioning brew. If I'm doing it with a head brewer or a senior brewer, I don't really have an impact what is getting through afterwards. The business is very very quick. There's a lot of going on. There's a lot of to pay attention as a manager. So I like to do the training with the brewers. There's actually a brew on it because then I can explain little tricks and tips, and I can also see, you know what? I can also see if what is that they lacking, what skills they do not have, because we are training different people with brewers with different skills. Some of them has more or less experience. Some of them did not have any experience with automatic brew on automatic brew kits. So I can just see and adjust my type of training as well to the person or to the kit. They can ask directly me if they are unsure about it. And we just also build a relationship, a long-term relationship, where we can just reach out to each other. Oh, hey Edina, I was wondering about this, or I'm not sure how to do this, when I'm not on site, and it's just easier to approach as well.
Do you find that larger groups of people that you have to train is more effective or ineffective for training?
A good question. I usually train one person. So, for example, if I'm going on, with this example that we just done at Blunt Rock. Each day I trained, or we did the brew with different brewers, and I find it easier. I don't think I ever trained more people. I mean, I can see two people. If it would be more than two person, I think I would struggle to explain.
Yeah.
They would have different questions as well. I think it's more effective if I train one person and we can talk eye to eye and we can see and validate each other, or they can probably we just can have a little bit open conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Do people often? Well, I guess they're going to have to make standard like SOPs, standard operating procedures. I promised I'd start explaining abbreviations more.
I love SOPs.
Yeah. Do people make SOPs as they go generally from what you see, or from the first commissioning brew, are they writing down and then going away and writing it up so other people can train, or do you think it's generally something they have to take a bit of time to figure out the kit themselves?
Good question. I do not write SOPs. I don't think that's my responsibility.
I agree.
So we do not provide SOPs for kits. They should do it after we commission.
Mm-hmm.
They need to still figure out their own way. We commission and we get the brews through, but firstly they need to make their own standard. What and how they want, what they pay attention on, and they would need to write that. I don't know how they do that. I don't have a picture on that, but it's their responsibility. I'm aware that this is, I think, just generally in the craft beer industry. I think it's something that needs to be improved on. Not sure what's your experience is, especially on smaller kids, but I think it's also something that needs to come from management and upper end to put the importance on it.
I agree 110%. I've got a question. Maybe it might have to end up going back to another point, but if you wanted to change something, so I'm a brewer, I'm going through and I think, no, I don't want that to happen in that way. Can they change that during commissioning, or is that the point of no return when you're on site, or where's sort of the best place to raise these concerns, and how do you go about changing or implementing new procedures at that point?
Yes, good question actually. Just because the commissioning is quite short, not everything is perfect. I'm going to say the end of the commissioning week, not everything is perfect. We usually once we put brew kit in operation, we write a snag list, a task list that we're finishing up, and we always checking back with the customer. If let's say one of the steps doesn't work, then we're just feeding back for quite a few weeks that to make sure it is how they want. And then we do like, or at least I do like, keep in touch with the brewers as well, if everything is okay. And after a few months, we can check back if once they figure the actual processes, if they need to change anything. I want this step, or I want my pump to go slower, or I want this regulating or whatever, then we would do that. There is so after we had a setup and they want a new change after a year, where we already closed the project, they could still do that, but obviously there would be some charge on changing the software. If it comes to get new valves, new pneumatic valves or stuff like that, that's also like a different topic. But obviously that would need to be, that's like we need to be cut. We need to cut the line. They could also, we can always put more automation on in as well later.
My advice from my brief experience is nowhere near as much as Edina's, but from the other side, where you're the brewer and you're having someone helping you with commission, is don't be afraid to be quite demanding at this point, because it's now that you can influence the most change. And then once you're sort of left with an automated system to some extent, you get a huge amount of consistency, which is why people strive for automation, but it does come at the cost of flexibility. So it means that you don't have the ability to change things as you do now on your manual kit, where you want to change a new procedure or do something new. You just open valves in a different way, and it doesn't work like that, obviously, when you've got automation. So during this time, you want to be as demanding and question as many things as you can. And if you don't like the way things are being sequenced, it's a lot easier to get them solved and changed now, or of course, preferably in the design phase, but it can be quite difficult when you're in the design phase to visualize and some procedures and some recipes or sequences might be the better word for it. So yeah, I'd say my advice is just be super demanding. Don't be afraid and ask lots of questions during this time, because this is your time to really have the biggest amount of influence over your brew kit before it gets sort of sealed behind automation.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's 100%. We improved a lot in the past couple of years, so usually now we have a certain style, I can say that, and because we worked with so many breweries, we also got feedback what was okay, what was not okay, so we always changed. So I think we have a quite good design that fits to most of the brewers. Obviously, all the brew kit is tailored to the brewery. If it's a lager, double, triple, imperial stout, whatever they brew, there are certain things that we need to pay attention on design, but we try to make it as practical as possible from the brewers. That's where my position comes in, just to, as a brewer, to make sure it's designed on a way that it should be for the styles that they want to brew. The difficulty is sometimes they want to brew all the styles that's possible, which is very difficult to adapt to, but I think we're doing great. Generally, well, yeah. I saw quite a few brew houses as well. What I wanted to add as well, it's also sometimes, let's say it has been designed, but the brewer was not involved in the design phase, or not the brewer was involved who is actually going to brew. So sometimes over there could be some confusions, oh, the brewer wishes it was like this or like that. But, nothing is perfect sometimes. So it's good to involve the brewer itself, obviously, in the design phase already.
Yes.
But sometimes breweries, well, usually there are brewing experts, people those are already worked at different companies and wanting to set up their own brewery. Ideally, if it's possible, it would be very great if the actual brewers can be employed before the installation. That makes the life so much easier.
Oh my God, yeah. I've been so far removed from that side of the world. It must be absolutely chaotic. commissioning with no brewers around. Oh, actually, probably beautiful. It's actually not chaotic at all. It's probably so incredibly peaceful because there's not loads of people asking loads of questions. But you must fear for the longevity of the of everything.
It could be quite stressful anyway, just because I think we were talking about it. There's a lot of other things going on while you're commissioning. So there's a lot of cranes around, putting centrifuges in or different things because you are commissioning the brew house. Or it could be like we didn't talk about, we obviously commissioning CIP kits as well. Or we are commissioning boilers, smaller boilers. Sometimes the contractor comes on site and they commissioning their or the chillers as well. And everything happens at the same time. For the, it's actually quite planning for installation and commissioning is very, very crucial. I wanted to touch base that because if you have compressor, boiler, everything, all these, they need to be happen quite on the same time. For the steam generator, you need to have a load to give, so you need to heat something up. For the chiller, you need to already, to a certain level, have commissioned or installed the FVs to be able to test the chiller as well. Dry goods again. So everything is happening at the same time. So when the commissioning is ongoing, there's a lot of people, a lot of concentration that needed, and health and safety is extremely crucial as well. Just because, as I said, there's so much electricians, so much other people, contractors inside. You need to pay attention that, well, as a brewer, obviously, just generally not accidentally urine cleaning, not accidentally flushing chemicals on someone, or someone is around, like, I don't know, for example, the other week we were commissioning and boiling, and the electricians were just like at the condenser fixing something. So you need to pay attention to inform people, right? Because you don't know what like there's a lot of contractors inside at that time.
Yeah, it can be quite eye-opening when you've never commissioned before and you realize that commissioning is not where they get every single thing set up ready to go and then you start brewing. It's you start brewing as things are going in, and it's like, well, this is not what I expected at all. I thought it was going to walk in, turn the key, get into the brewery, and it'd be brand spanking new, everything's ready, set up to go, and I just turn up. It's not like that. You're running the brew house and then putting it into the fermenter whilst the separator is being installed. And you're like, this is all getting rather tight, and then all of a sudden, the yeast storage vessels are going in after the yeast prop, but before you've actually, or just before you're ready to use them. It is a bit of a beautiful chaos, really, isn't it? I mean, as you said, planning is just
beautiful chaos. I like
that. Planning is key, and you need a very good project manager or someone who's capable of working a lot of different moving parts into one timeline.
Yes. Yes.
We had one for the big project, a guy called Jan Fidder, and he was one of the best people I've ever worked with, and to scale this project, like the scale of that project and how many people he had to deal with and bring into timelines, it's absolutely outstanding. It's a real skill, something I probably don't have a strong enough one in.
Yeah, and a lot of times if you have a brew kit, you want to brew, so there's a big pressure to push out the beers. So it's not like you're waiting for everything, as you said, to get finished. Because if the brew kit is already there, okay, why I'm not brewing? So there's a big pressure of start brewing, and that beer is going to go into cans and push out. Sometimes it's already planned in. If they're scaling up, those first few brews are already, well, I'm not saying it's sold, but it's definitely planned in. And if it's a very busy brewery, there's not too much leeway to delay or be late with it.
I think, absolutely. And talking about commissioning, how important is optimization during commissioning, and how much attention gets paid, and should they then pay it later on? Might be a leading question.
Good question. Usually optimization is not the priority during commissioning. It is safety, obviously, number one. Just because it's an automated system, we have safety guards, and I think training is a part of the safety as well, just to make sure they're using the kits right, and getting through synchronizing the system, synchronizing the dry goods system together, making sure everything is working rather than optimization, and we're not working already on efficiencies. We want to, well, it's not like we are getting out, like our kits are getting quite good efficiency generally, but I'm not focusing on the efficiency on this time, and not on water usage either. Like obviously we're not flooding the brewery, but that's not the space and time to do. It's just to get it going safely, getting a good beer out, and the optimization, I would say, on the brewery afterwards, and the skilled brewers, if they have, and obviously the management as well, where they put the focus on.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great point. It commissioning it, so many moving parts, as we've said quite a few times, that optimization is kind of an unrealistic target, especially if, for your example, doing 3 brews, it's unrealistic to expect someone to also optimize perfectly. And the goals of commissioning are not to be intensely resourceful. Of course, you have, like as you said, you have efficiency targets and things to make sure, but that's kind of like how the kit operates. But optimizing it beyond that is solely down to the brewery. And for my company, Brewers, also, this is where I see a lot of room for optimization downstream, especially in things like water usage and flushes, like preset flushes. Like, they're in there because that's what they need to be there for when they're commissioning. Tick the box, it's good, it works, it's safe, as you said. Safety first for people, and to some extent the beer as well. So making sure that everything is, ticked. But how important is that? And where you can take a lot more risks when it's your brewery rather than when you're commissioning someone else's. So I found previous jobs, we had huge amounts of optimization to do post commissioning, but that took a whole year really for us to even get comfortable with everything that we were doing process wise, and then we fine tuned. And I feel that's, don't let that slide, basically. And understand that it's not the expectation of, exactly as you said, Edina, it's like, it's not really the scope of commissioning, and nor should it be. It doesn't really make any sense. So just to have that, bear that in mind, that you will then need to undergo those optimization projects down the line to make sure that you're maximizing your resources and utilities.
Yeah, what I also like, obviously I'm not on the side, I think you'd need a lot of data for optimizing. Just to see, like, even a data, like, what is my incoming water, if we're talking about water, what am I flushing down, just to have, because you pay the bills, but you sometimes don't pay attention on these details. So you need a data, and once you have that, where am I losing that water? You need to put some attention on those, and just a person who's actually working there day to day. Well, I feel like, and has the motivation as well, and the willing to do. From day-to-day basis, they can just notice where things slipping, either we're talking about water or other energy sources, caustic for some reason. Like I did some optimization on CIP kits before, on caustic temperatures as well. So for those, you need to have a lot of testing as well. If you're talking about caustic and like micro, and you need your other systems. So I think data that is a little bit overlooked, that's a bit overlooked in getting missed sometimes in smaller companies, smaller breweries. There are obviously very good examples, but I love data, I love numbers.
Me too.
Maybe too much.
Yeah, me too.
And I think data has a very big power. If you put a little bit of attention, you don't even need too much, but you could save a lot of money and time and water and all.
Absolutely. Something I definitely preach a lot in my day-to-day life. One final question from me, Edina, is on maintenance. So not all breweries will have engineers or full-time maintenance staff. So how does just a lowly brewer go about maintaining their brand new turnkey project?
So we do provide a list of crucial parts that might be needed to fix things. Some breweries do get them, some breweries do not get them. We do have service contract as well. And we do provide some sort of like some maintenance on our kit as well. If something goes wrong, a lot of brewers just reach out to us. Oh, could you fix this and this and this, or something gone wrong, or I don't know, heat exchanger recently that we needed to change because was not maintained necessarily well. Obviously, doing acid cleans helps a lot, especially if it's a heat exchanger. So you need to descale your kit, and just generally use it smart, and yes, maintain it. So if you can afford a contract service, that's obviously very good. It's difficult. It's getting difficult when kits are not getting maintained. I wish most of the brewers could employ someone who at least has a little bit more electrical or like engineering skills.
Absolutely.
It helps if they can maintain on site. But to a certain level, every brewer is an engineer. We do a lot of fixes by ourselves, but we do provide services as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Service contracts would probably be highly recommended. I'm sure they're not factored in the original cost of things, but having properly maintained equipment, pretty essential really, isn't it, for the longevity? What sort of do SSV, for example, offer a warranty on their equipment?
Good question, because I don't know.
Perfect. Cool. We'll skip over that then.
I'm going to put that on my list.
Okay, so Edina, so far this has been absolutely amazing. Is there anything else you would like to add to the podcast?
There's a lot of things that I could add. Not to my, not just that is in my mind. We could have 3 hours conversations about other topics as well, connected to commissioning, obviously. But
well, Edina, you're welcome back on this show anytime. Thank you so much for taking your time out and sharing your wealth of knowledge on this really fascinating subject. And I think you have such a cool job going around commissioning breweries. I think it must be so fun. I'm so jealous. I think it must be, pretty chaotic and probably pretty high stress at times. So massive respect as well, but I imagine it's pretty rewarding and fun.
Thanks, 100%. Just working together with these cool breweries. It's amazing, and it's just a big learning curve for me as well. With each brewery, I just learn new things from each brewers. I just learn new, and I learned so much that I thought there are things that would never work out, because myself always worked for quite big breweries like Brewdog, Submiller. Well, not just automated, but I had advantage, or I don't know, I had the experience of working on bigger and more automized kit, and sometimes I wasn't aware how certain manual things would go. For example, this week there was I had I always had a scavenge pump when I'm cleaning the CIP, and this was the first time when I didn't have a scavenge pump. I only had one pump to work with. So for example, that was a new thing for me as well. So I'm loving learning all these new things from the brewers.
Awesome. Well, I hope you come back on the podcast in the future and share all of these great experiences with us all again. Thank you so much for coming on, Edina. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, Chris.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Edina. If you can remember to share the pod with a brewing friend or acquaintance or colleague, that would be awesome. It would really help me out and help the podcast grow. So thank you so much for your support. And as always, I will catch you on the next episode of the Modern Brewer Podcast.